Who will get the better of who in the quarterback battle between Jayden Daniels and Lamar Jackson in the Commanders versus Ravens game? Can the Cincinnati Bengals save their season in prime time? The Ultimate NFL Pregame Show starts now.
It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Every team, every game, every angle. The local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network going head-to-head on every matchup. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Unprecedented insight, unrivaled passion, and unsurpassed knowledge. It's the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. The Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Week 6 in the NFL is officially here, and we've got everything you need to know heading into the weekend from the local experts across the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher, and this is the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. So from the primetime game of Bengals and Giants to the big 425 matchup in Dallas to the amazing 1 p.m. game on deck between the Ravens and the Commanders, we are going to go game by game to make you the most informed fan for game day. So we're going to start off here on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show with a look at the 1 p.m. slate, go into the 4 p.m. games after that, and obviously prime time to round out the show. But of course, the Seahawks and 49ers played a game on Thursday Night Football. But the first game we're going to talk about here today is abroad. The Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams versus Trevor Lawrence. Jacksonville trying to stack up wins, and Caleb Williams looking to get a win for himself. So Tony Wiggins of Locked On Jaguars, as well as Lauren Cox of Locked On Bears, take you through the game and what you need to know.
Welcome into our crossover Thursday, Locked On Bears, Locked On Jaguars. Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears alongside Tony Wiggins from Locked On Jaguars. Want to let you know that Crossover Thursday is presented by PrizePicks. Download the app and use our promo code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Tony, when you look at the Jaguars coming to London, trying to keep some of this positive momentum going after the win over the Colts, what do they need to do to start a winning streak after a 4-game losing streak to begin the year?
The first thing is to get over their Achilles heel, and that is converting on third down. They still didn't do that much against the Colts. Fortunately for them, they didn't get to a lot of third down situations. They were cooking. Trevor Lawrence had 28 out of 34, and he had 2 drops. So they were really, really cooking in the passing game. And then the running game with Tank Bigsby, they were really able to get a lot done, so they didn't get themselves in those long down and distance situations. And then the reverse is they got to get Chicago off the field on third down. I don't know if the Jaguars have played a game this year where they won time of possession. And when you don't win time of possession, that means less opportunities. And when teams take away possessions and it comes down to a game of limited possessions, it's the teams that are able to sustain drives in those situations that can put themselves in scoring position. So the Jaguars just have to take care of their opportunities and don't, obviously, the cliche over the years, we've been watching football a long time, is don't turn the ball over. So when they don't turn the ball over and when they don't go into these little funks where it's 3 and out, and then it's a 10-play drive on the other side, and then it's another 3 and out, that's where they get themselves in a world of hurt and a world of trouble. So the key is going to be making sure they get to the sticks and keep these drives going and don't turn the ball over in the short field.
I can almost guarantee you, that the Chicago Bears will get a turnover on the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've done it every single game this season, and most games they've gotten 2 or 3. They have been incredibly aggressive and opportunistic. And I guess I want to throw it back at you then. Okay, like if one of the keys to victory is avoiding turnovers, how well do you think the Jaguars can overcome a turnover? Does it feel to you like a big turnover or 2 and then they're just done for? Or do you feel like, based on some of the progress they've made and some of the close games they've been in, that maybe they're resilient enough that the turnover is not going to deflate everything and derail whatever progress they were building?
Well, they just can't let multiple things happen and compound the problem. Football is a game of adversity. You're going to see it. You're going to get it at some point. Last week, it was stopping the big plays by the Colts. Early in the game, it was the quick passing game to Josh Downs. Late, it was Alex Pierce that was killing them and wearing them out. But they gave up 34 points. But the reason why they were able to overcome that and win is because they remained aggressive on offense, and the Colts had no answer for them. Too many times what happens with the Jaguars is they make a bad play and then the other team makes a good play and then the Jaguars don't get back on. And like, for instance, Miami, 17-7 at halftime, right? They were going up. They were using the clock. They had the time of possession working. They had a long drive all the way from their own 4-yard line, got all the way inside of the 20-yard line. Travis Etienne was running the ball into the end zone, and Javon Holland for the Dolphins punched it out. Dolphins took over right there on the 20-yard line because it was a touchback. The next play, they threw an 80-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill. Jaguars got the ball back and went 3 and out. Miami got the ball back, hit a big play to Jalen Waddle. Miami ties the game up. Then Miami gets the ball back again. The Jaguars have a chance to win it. They can't run the clock out. They go 3 and out. The Dolphins get the ball back with a minute to go. Bip, 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 go down the field, kick a 53-yard field goal and leave. You have to be able to stop the bleeding. So, when you take that blow or you take that shot from the other team, you have to give them one back, and you have to find it in another area. That area last week was the pass rush. As much as Joe Flacco played well, I'm going to mention this until the Roosters come home because it seems like everyone doesn't want to mention it. Trayvon Walker had 3 sacks and caused the 4th sack and also had a forced fumble. Trayvon Walker has 9 sacks in his last 10 games. So for all the Aiden Hutchinson fans, that's fine. He's a great player. But don't act like this kid is a bust, because if I told you that the last 5 games of last year, he had 10 sacks last year, but the last 5 plus the last 5 this year, in those 10 games, he has 9 sacks. And he's one of the best run defenders in the league. That kid needs to get some recognition. And he was one of the key reasons why they were able to turn this thing around last week and hold on, because he played well on that side of the ball and created some situations that were very, very difficult for the Colts. So whenever that adversity comes, they have to make sure it doesn't affect everything. The bleeding can't go everywhere. It can't be Murphy's Law where everything that can go wrong will go wrong. They have to make sure that, okay, we took that, but now we're going to give you something back on the other side.
I'm glad you mentioned that pass rush playing so well last week, because that's going to be one of the keys for the Bears on offense, is like not letting that Jacksonville Jaguars pass rush derail what the Bears want to do on offense. So much of this Bears offensive success has lived and died by what the offensive line has done. They've played a lot better the last couple of weeks, but they've played some lower quality pass rushes on the other side. So this will be a big test of like, is the Bears offensive line actually getting better? Are the younger players taking a step forward and just kind of settling in a little bit more? Or did they build up maybe some unwarranted confidence against opponents that just weren't able to test them in some of the same ways? Because if the Bears can still run the ball well against Jacksonville, then they won't have to ask Caleb Williams to throw it 50 times. He can take it easy and not have to force anything downfield or try and do too much, and just let the offense come to him a little bit more. That's what we've seen the last couple of weeks, but I think the Jaguars are going to test some things in the other direction there. Certainly defensively, I mean, it's kind of the inverse of what we talked about. It's the turnovers. Get 1 or 2, whether it's an interception, a strip sack, a forced fumble on somebody. The Bears will get at least 1, and I think if they can get a second one to give that extra possession to the offense, they should be able to cruise and feel pretty good about this overall like team formula of like, don't make life so hard on Caleb Williams. Let's take how the team goes, and the defense can carry a lot of the load there.
Question, is this their first trip to London?
No, the Bears did London quite a few years. It's the first trip under Matt Eberflus. So not organizationally, but coaching staff, yes. And they flew in early. They flew in Monday, so they're spending all week in London to acclimate to the time and practice over there.
The Jaguars ain't left yet. They're supposed to leave tomorrow. I don't know if they're going to change that because of this nasty storm that is brewing and coming towards the state of Florida. But they know how to handle this trip. They know how to handle the 9:30 start. I think that does play a little bit of a factor in the fact that they've done this before, because teams don't like to do stuff. All those West Coast teams that come play these 1 o'clock games, they hate it, because teams, there's a certain way that they're used, their workflow is a certain way. The Jaguars are used to this. So if there's a little bit of an advantage in that respect, I think I'll give it to Jacksonville. But I'm also being a little bit of a homer too. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, more than anything, rookie quarterback trying London for the first time compared to Trevor Lawrence doing London for, I don't know what number it's been, but a handful of times now. Like there's definitely going to be an advantage there for the Jaguars. What are you sort of thinking for a score? How close do you think this one ends up being?
27-16 Jacksonville.
I was going to say the exact opposite. I was going to say 27-17 Bears. So this is going to be a fun one to see which one of us is closer here on the final score, and how much the London factor plays a role.
Lauren is great, and so is Tony. For more on Lauren and Tony, check them out over on the Locked On Bears and Locked On Jaguars podcast, respectively, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Moving into the official 1 p.m. games, as the Jaguars-Bears is going to be at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. The Washington Commanders are taking the league by storm, particularly Jayden Daniels, and they travel to Baltimore to take on Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, coming off one of the games of the year against the Cincinnati Bengals in Week 5. This one's shaping up to be a potential game of the year as well. So David Harrison of Locked On Commanders and myself, Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens will be diving into everything you need to know, key matchup storylines, and what the Ravens and Commanders need to do to win the game. We are back with Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders with David Harrison of Locked On Commanders. I am Kevin Ostreicher of Locked On Ravens. Just a reminder here that this crossover Thursday edition of both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. And be sure to subscribe to both Locked On Ravens and Locked On Commanders on YouTube and follow along wherever you get your favorite podcast. Now, David, there are so many things that have to go right for any NFL team to win a game, especially in a high-powered shootout, which I feel like is the prediction right now. A lot of people are expecting a lot of points and maybe not so much defense in this game. But from the Commanders side of things, what are 3 things they have to do in order to pull out this victory?
Oh, man, I think first and foremost, you got to play disciplined defensive aggression, right? You want to be aggressive. Joe Witt Jr., Dan Quinn, they want an aggressive defense. So you got to be disciplined in that aggression while you're trying to do that. Sticky coverage. We already kind of talked about it a little bit, but I think 2 times on defense, defensive discipline aggression, sticky coverage, and then on offense, exploit the middle of that Baltimore Ravens defense. Run the ball at least 17, 18 times. Keep them honest. Make sure the Baltimore Ravens understand you might have a really good run defense, but you got to use that thing because that's going to help you exploit the middle of that coverage. And that is where I think the Washington Commanders can make their money the most and help them try to get an upset win. Now, if Humphrey is out, changes things a little bit. Maybe you target the perimeter a little bit more, but still want to use that middle of the defense if you can.
And that to me is a really big one because at this point with this Ravens defense, they've had all sorts of issues on that side of the ball. And in the secondary, it's part of, I mentioned Marcus Williams, Brandon Stevens, who had a great year for them last year. One of his fatal flaws is he doesn't turn his head around on the ball. So he had a great pass breakup on T. Higgins. He had no idea that ball was coming. He just kind of stuck his hand up and got lucky with it. The ball kind of jots out there. So if Jayden is able to kind of confuse this Ravens defense a little bit, that's one area that I really, really think Washington could exploit. But here's the other part of this, David. Washington or any other team with a rookie quarterback, second-year quarterback, it's been tough if they've seen this Ravens defense for the first time for them to get momentum. Baltimore, the stat is 15-2, I believe it is, against rookie quarterbacks at home under John Harbaugh. Yeah. So this defense is complex despite whoever it is, Don Martindale, Dean Pease, Mike McDonald, Zach Orr. There's always a level of complexity. So when I'm thinking about the Ravens, I'm like, well, first of all, you got to make Jayden Daniels uncomfortable. Confuse Jayden Daniels, get him out of his element, and make him second guess himself on some of those throws. I think that's a big one. I also think establishing the run early is going to be really key for this team because, again, you want to be able to use your offense to its potential. Fast start kind of goes in there. And I've been saying it every week because I think now we have to say it here in Baltimore, 60 minutes of football. This game is not 3 quarters long. We know the narrative around Baltimore. And honestly, last week they flipped it on its head against Cincinnati. But those 3 things to me for Baltimore are the keys.
Yeah, I think that first one is going to be really challenging, right? And I think that's kind of the trick here is who is going to be the first one to figure out how to make Jayden Daniels uncomfortable, right? Because the thing about trying to make Jayden Daniels second guess himself is he doesn't second guess himself. Like that's just kind of part of his makeup is he believes his eyes. He sees what he sees. If he sees an opening, he goes for it. If he doesn't see an opening, he doesn't go for it and he goes for a different opening, right? He doesn't sit there and try to wait and figure it out. Well, maybe that's going to come open or maybe that's going to do this or maybe that's going to do that. He doesn't play those games. He's very matter of fact about it. And, the analogy that I've used about him, Commanders fans are going to get sick of me using these analogies, but I keep using them on Crossover Thursdays because that's what Ravens fans haven't heard it yet, is if his house was on fire, he would gather all of his collectibles, all the things that he thinks are valuable in his home, and he would just stroll out the front door like nothing was happening because that dude has no panic in him. He's got no hurry in him. Now, again, week 1 did see that clock accelerated, but it wasn't a panic thing. It was just basically a rookie quarterback getting used to the speed of the NFL game going up against a very aggressive defensive coordinator in Todd Bowles. I'm actually very curious to see if the Ravens blitz more. I think it's a little bit of reputation over the years, But I actually expected when I started diving into this matchup that the Ravens were going to be one of the more blitzing teams in the league, but that's actually not the case. They like to bring 4 rushers a lot. They like to mix it up by having 2 down linemen, 3 down linemen, and then bring an extra guy who's standing up from somewhere else or an extra 2 guys from somewhere else. And that's definitely a way to get creative with it. But I'm curious to see if maybe they blitz a little bit more in this game than they have in other games. I think the blitz rate against Patrick Mahomes in week 1 was a little bit higher than the blitz rate all season long. So that could be an indication that might be what they're going to do, because again, Jayden's the kind of guy, if you let him sit back there, he's either going to rip it or he's going to run away from you. So if you don't put some pressure on him and you let him sit back there and just pick and choose what he wants to do, he's going to do it all day long. He's gonna gladly take anything that you can give him. So it's gonna be an interesting chess match to see if Jayden forces the Ravens to do some things that maybe they haven't been doing this year.
Yeah, and I think that I would probably anticipate the Ravens blitzing a bit more just to see if they can rattle Jayden early and see if that can carry over for the rest of the game. But the thing is, if they aren't successful, and if Jayden is either getting the ball out quickly, if he's extending plays, scrambling out of there, and especially using the short passing game, that could hurt the Ravens. But I would expect them to try some different things, because they love to, again, blitz their DBs off the edge. They love to confuse in terms of sending guys to the line and then not bringing everybody. But you're right. I think the Don Martindale Ravens, I mean, they were number 1 in blitz percentage, number 1 in blitz everything. But ever since he left, they've kind of scaled back that blitzing, and it's been less of a blitzing effort and more of calculated blitzing, as opposed to just live by the blitz, die by the blitz mentality, which certainly was there over those Don Martindale years. So going to be a really exciting game in Baltimore. Jayden Daniels versus Lamar Jackson. This is a game that everybody, I think, should have circled on their slate of games to watch 100%. For more on David, be sure to check out Locked On Commanders. And for more on me, check me out over at Locked On Ravens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The New Orleans Saints are starting a rookie against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Spencer Rattler getting his first career NFL start, going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in an NFC South showdown. So Jamie Jericho of Locked On Bucks and Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints dive into if Rattler is ready for the spotlight or if the Bucks will get the better of him.
All right, breaking down this New Orleans Saints hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers matchup. Take a look at what each team needs to do to get that win. I want to start off over with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are doing something the New Orleans Saints are not doing, and that's getting healthier. And James, I imagine that plays a big role for this Tampa team.
Absolutely. And you talked, earlier about Logan Hall and kind of the way he's played the last couple of weeks. He's matched over the last 2 weeks his career total coming into the season in sacks. He has been on another level. So, I mean, I don't know if that speaks to how poorly he played the first 2 years of his career or how great he's playing right now. I'm going to glass half full it and say it's because he's playing so great right now. But now you have the trend of Kalijah Kancey likely returning. The Bucs have not had him all season. You can go back to last year. And the damage that Kalijah Kancey and Vita Vea do when they are on the field together is massive. You add the additional pass rush threat of Logan Hall now as an emerging player, and all of a sudden things are opening up for Yaya Diaby, for Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, for the rookie Chris Braswell. The Bucs are going to be able to bring more than the Saints are going to be able to block. And if they get Antoine Winfield Jr. back, as well as anyone, that guy can get in the backfield. He can take down quarterbacks. He can disrupt rushing attacks. He can do it all. So having those two guys back on the field, if it happens, again, it's trending in that direction. It's not official yet, but that changes everything that Todd Bowles can do defensively and how much he can just absolutely toy with the brain of Spencer Rattler in his first career start.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. That brings me to one of my keys that kind of matches up with this, is that the Saints have not gotten healthier on the offensive line, right? Wednesday's practice participation report was estimated, but still no Cesar Ruiz. Eric McCoy's an injured reserve, so he ain't coming back. And then, of course, you now have Lucas Patrick, who's dealing with a chest injury as well. So that's the Saints' 3 starting interior offensive linemen that might not be, or at least one of them's not playing, right? Eric McCoy is not playing. So we'll see where things go when it comes to Patrick as well as Ruiz, but the Saints absolutely need those guys. And so the key for me in this exchange is that the Saints have to find a way to protect their young quarterback, right? To be able to give them, I don't know if it's, keeping the tight ends back, keeping the running backs back, whatever. But the more that you do that, the more your run game suffers, all these other things. And so one of the best ways that the Saints are going to be looking to alleviate some of the pressure on Spencer Rattler is by getting their run game going. Not going to be easy. Not going to be easy because we just talked about those offensive line injuries, right? We can't say that that's bad for the passing game, but that it's somehow great for the run game. No, it's not going to be easy at all. So the Saints are going to have to scheme it, right? They're going to have to get this right in terms of deploying their outside zone run, getting their blocks right, getting players where they need to get, and then hoping that you've got Alvin Kamara, who was also estimated as did not participate in practice, along with Taysom Hill, who was out last week. And the Saints have struggled to keep their offense moving without a Taysom Hill in the lineup. So you want that run game to support Spencer Rattler to help to alleviate some of the pressure that James is talking about with that sort of potentially healthier defensive pass rush there. And of course, expansive pass rush with Todd Bowles. So that would be my top key that goes right along with yours, dude.
Yeah, no doubt. And trying to block Vita Vea with 3 backup interior offensive linemen, that is
not great, Bob.
Fuel for Spencer Rattler. Absolute nightmare fuel. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be the biggest key for both teams, right?
Yeah.
Then you take a look at what else Tampa needs to do. I would say first and foremost, get Godwin going early and then protect the middle of the field. That is not something that they did against the Atlanta Falcons. So the offense has been at its best this season when Chris Godwin has gotten the majority of the targets and the receptions, because no team can match up with him one-on-one in the slot. He's taken advantage of that all year long and been the Bucs engine. I love that they got Mike Evans involved in the game early the last 2 weeks. First passing play, both games, straight to Mike Evans. He's come away with a couple of touchdowns the last couple of weeks, but don't forget about Chris Godwin in the process and what he does for the team. He's a third down, automatic third down machine. He's as sure-handed a receiver as you're going to find, and he's the guy that's moved the chains all year long. You don't have to get cute with the offense. Just get Godwin the ball, get inside the 10 zone, and then you can throw up a jump ball to Mike Evans. You can run it with Bucky. You can find Cade Otton, but Godwin has to be the guy to keep the ball moving up and down the field.
Yeah. Man, yeah, this is going to be such a fun game to watch. I'm like giddy. I'm excited about this. I haven't been excited about a Saints and Bucs game like this in a little while, probably since like Jameis's first game against the Bucs, right? And then we saw how that ended up going with the injury and stuff like that, which is really unfortunate. But that was the last time that you were really excited for a matchup like this, I think. Even I might be fading something, I don't know, but it's just the way that I feel with this one. But I'm excited.
The one in week 17 last year was, that was a must win for both. New Orleans had to keep their playoff hopes alive with a road win, and the Bucs could have clinched the division. So that one had some serious stakes to it, and I think we were both I think I was a little bit more excited than you were, because you felt like New Orleans was trending down at the time, and then they gave you the hope that got a big win. But this is going to be a big one, because again, it's a must win for both teams, and we're saying that in week 6.
Yeah. All right, so my last two it's great. My last 2 keys for this one, before I keep nerding out, come down to the Saints taking away the middle of the field. That's been a big issue for them so far this year. And then I kind of conflated my other 2 in terms of protecting Spencer Rattler and getting the run game going. So I'll add a third one here, and that's get Chris Olave involved in going in this game. You were mentioning about Chris Godwin and how clutch he's been on third downs and things like that. Chris Olave's been the same way when he's been a part of the game plan, or when he has been taken out of the game plan. And so I think you got to find ways to get Chris Olave involved. You want Spencer Rattler, who can make all of these throws all around the field, to have somebody that he can rely on. And Chris Olave should be that guy. That should be your number one guy going out there and getting it done. So I think that would be big. But when it comes down to taking away the middle of the field, I just think that that's something that the Saints have struggled to do over the course of this season so far in the passing game. We know the matchup between Marshall Lattimore and Mike Evans is going to be mostly a perimeter matchup, but they will get mixed up in the middle of the field, of course. Lattimore has covered Mike Evans over the 12 games that they played over 61% of the time. So I'm sure we're going to see a lot of opportunity and matchup between these two. But I think even beyond just that headliner of a matchup, you've got to see this New Orleans Saints defense find a way to not get torn apart by crossing routes, not get torn apart over the middle of the field, get back to what the defense was looking like earlier on in the season. Could be a tall task, but I think that that's something that New Orleans Saints have to get done. They finished as a negative EPA defense for the first time in a while up against Kansas City, but that was Kansas City. You can't let that happen again against a team that's not Kansas City. I don't care that it's the Bucs, but you got to not do it against a team that's not Kansas City. You know what I mean? So I think those are my two biggest keys here. Get two other keys, get Chris Olave involved and then start to fare a little bit better against those crossing routes on defense.
Yeah, and if I'm Todd Bowles and if I'm a Bucs fan, I want to see Zion McCollum be the one on Chris Olave for the majority of this game. McCollum is one of the surprise stories, I think, that's not being talked about across the NFL. He's Pro Football Focus #1 rated corner in the league through the first 5 weeks of the season, and he has emerged as just an absolute shutdown guy. I don't trust Jamel Dean right now. I don't want him on Chris Olave. So put McCollum over there and let him handle Olave for the vast majority. Olave is going to get his. It's McCollum can't be a stonewall forever, but the damage will be far less than if you have Jamel Dean being the one trying to contain Chris Olave. And you nailed it. Same with the Bucs. Cover the middle of the field. They didn't do it against Atlanta. KJ Brandt was just absolutely made to look like a fool by Kirk Cousins. And the last time these two teams. Not Kirktober. Stop with the Kirktober. It's not a thing. You go back to week 17 last year, Juwan Johnson, 90 yards and a touchdown on 8 receptions. Huge. He absolutely exploded. You can't let that happen. What's a quarterback's best friend, Ross? A pass-catching running back and a sure-handed tight end that can sit down in the middle of the field to help him get out of trouble. You can't let that happen. You got to protect that interior, and that's why I talked about KJ Brandt in these passing situations might see the sideline in favor of a Tyke Smith or a Christian Izzian and somebody who's a little bit better in coverage to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned that being a quarterback's best friend. You know what? It's even more so a rookie quarterback's best friend, right? To have that sort of safety valve there. So one of the things that New Orleans has struggled to do is get Chris Olave involved in a game and get tight ends involved in the same game. It's always been one or the other. So it'll be to their advantage, it sounds like, to get both of those elements going if they can.
James and Ross giving you that Bucs and Saints insight you cannot get anywhere else. For more on James, more on Ross, check them out over on Locked On Bucs and Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's the first part of the 1 p.m. slate of games. Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll be diving into the rest of those 1 p.m. games. So stay tuned here on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. We have a lot more to dive into. Don't go anywhere. First, the show is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows the others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. We are back here, our second segment on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. Kevin Oestreicher still here taking you through all of the action that is in store for us this weekend in Week 6. It's crazy. We're already a month and a half through the season once Week 6 is over. We just talked about the first part of the action. Obviously, the game abroad in the first two matchups of the 1 p.m. slate. But we're going to be diving into the rest of those 1 p.m. games right now as we start off in Philadelphia, where the Philadelphia Eagles, coming off of their bye, will be looking to officially sink the Browns season as Deshaun Watson has been playing not good football and the Browns are spiraling. So Jeff Lloyd of Locked On Browns, Louis DiBiase of Locked On Eagles have you covered and take you through all the keys you need to know.
All right, Jeff, let's wrap up Crossover Thursday with some keys to victory. Eagles-Browns Sunday at 1 o'clock at Lincoln Financial Field. The Eagles trying to get to 3-2. The Browns trying to save their season here at 2-4 and just keep their playoff hopes alive and try to make life of this season for sure. And again, you mentioned like they're pretty banged up right now. The quarterback is not good. Things are just not going well for the Browns. If they did pull off a victory on Sunday on the road against a 2-2 Eagles team that really needs this football game, how do they do it in your eyes?
It's going to have to go back to, most of the way they won in 2023. It's going to have to be that their defense just went out and was outstanding. Their defensive line just destroyed. The thing with their defensive line last year is they were so great at obviously harassing the quarterback, but they blew up the running game. This team gang tackled last year. So guess what? When you had a missed tackle, it wasn't that big, because you want to know why? I may have missed you, but there was a dude right on my hip. He got you. But that is not. And a lot of it now, it's one guy in space, which scares the living daylights out of me, because they have not faced a guy with the athletic ability of Saquon Barkley to this point yet in any of the games they've played. So that is certainly a bigger headache, an exasperating headache that is already, basically expanding upon. That is something that has been an issue to this point. If you don't have Denzel Ward, now Greg Newsome becomes a starter, and I don't have that issues with that. But, Greg Newsome, Martin Emerson, nothing but one-on-ones all day long with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. The mobility factor from Jalen Hurts, because obviously it looks like his legs are a lot healthier this year than they were last year. And there were times last year where I was screaming at the Eagles, like, what are you doing? He's banged up, and it's your first drive of the game, and it's 3rd and 8, and you're asking him to run the ball. But now he can run when he's choosing because he feels better. He's healthy enough to do it. This game just scares me. And the other thing is, it's their 3rd straight road game. Their first one, they played close with the Raiders. They got smoked last week by Washington. And now here's the 3rd one. And the problems and the issues just continue to exasperate and just get bigger and more as far as number-wise of issues. And now you have a team where Philly, and look, it's not always great to have that early bye week, but I think there's a good chance they wouldn't have had maybe Brown or Smith or either one or the other, or maybe
I think they needed this one. Yeah.
So they got that extra week early. Now your offense is going to go out there on full tilt talent-wise. I mean, it would take a miracle, but if it's going to happen, it will be because of the defense.
Yeah, and I think it would also be because the Eagles just continue to shoot themselves in the foot, and that's what they've been doing all year, and that's why I think for the last 2 years they haven't been able to win a convincing football game where they win by multiple scores and they have the lead the entire time. I mean, they barely held a lead this year, Jeff, even at 2-2. So a lot of that's because they have the 2nd or 3rd worst turnover differential in football, and that has a lot to do with Jalen Hurts, and the turnovers are a lot worse than last year. He's turning over the ball in his own zone, in the red zone, just plays where you got to have it, and he's not taking advantage. So for the Eagles, just to make sure they win this football game, get out of your own way. Stop with the turnovers and start faster. Like, there's no excuse, again, coming out of a bye week that they shouldn't have a good first 15 plays where they can get a lead. They haven't scored a point in the first quarter this year, and that's just unacceptable for the talent they have. So I think the Eagles, like, again, the way to win this football game is just get out of your own way. And then on defense, again, like, don't show Deshaun Watson respect. I really just, it drives me nuts. It wasn't just Vic Fangio, but it was Sean Desai last year, and it was Jonathan Gannon. Even Jim Schwartz in the past at times just would get chewed up by inferior quarterbacks. And I just hope that, Watson has looked so bad this year. I really hope the Eagles don't continue to let these quarterbacks that look terrible against other defenses look like stars against them. So I'm not saying that's what I predict, that he's going to light up this defense, especially with Cooper DeJean starting in the slot now. I love that decision. But again, it's been hard to have a lot of faith in this defense after the first 4 games.
There's no question about it. And, look, you need to get better. You need to improve as the year goes on. It looks like the Browns, they are getting less talented as the weeks go on. Philly, maybe it was a break at the right time. And, hey, that's always the type of thing. And, that would be the plan for Philly. It's going to be a tough one for the Browns. And, if it's not this week, it might not matter.
Jeff is great. Louis is great. And for more on those two, you can check them out over at Locked On Browns and Locked On Eagles, respectively, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Houston Texans coming off of a big win over the Buffalo Bills in week 5. they will be traveling to take on the New England Patriots, who will be starting their rookie quarterback in Drake May. So a big matchup for May as this Houston Texans defense has some stars on it. So Mike Debate of Locked On Patriots and Big Sarge of Locked On Texans take you through the keys, storylines, and more as these two teams are set to face off.
Patriots fans and Texans fans, thank you for joining us today on this Locked On Patriots, Locked On Texans crossover episode. Mike Debate of Locked On Patriots, joined by Brian Big Sarge Bearfield, host of Locked On Texans. And Brian, we've talked a lot about what the New England Patriots and the Houston Texans need to do to remain competitive and to give themselves an edge in this game. But when it comes right down to it, these games are usually about keys to victory. Little things that these teams need to do, maybe major things these teams need to do in order to make sure that they're on the winning side. Being the visiting team, when you look at the Houston Texans, what would you say are the keys to victory this Sunday for Houston?
The only key, there's only one key for the Houston Texans this weekend, and that is to get that offense going. Now, when you look at their stats, I know that they're ranked number one in passing offense with 272 yards per game. I know that they are sixth in total offense at 376.6 yards per game, but the offense has looked stale. The offense has looked ineffective at times. It looks like they're stuck sometimes in mud, and they need to get out of that mud, get out of that rut, and get going. They haven't scored over 30 points this year, and with the amount of talent that they have on the offensive side of the ball, led by quarterback CJ Stroud, now is the time. This is one of the times where you're playing against a team, and I don't want to call the Patriots a weaker opponent, because any team can be beaten in the NFL on any given Sunday. Last year, we watched the Houston Texans go into a game against the Carolina Panthers. Panthers were winless on the season, and they lost. Went in against the Atlanta Falcons, a team that they should have beaten very, very handily on that day, and they lost. And so you cannot look past any team in the NFL. But with the amount of firepower that they have and the offensive mind in Bobby Slowick, the only key to victory is to make sure that you're scoring and you keep scoring. In the second half, of games this season, that offense has become putrid. And I know people don't like when I say that, but before last Sunday, they were averaging 8.5 points in the second half, and you can get that from kicker Kaimi Fairbairn. Especially with this type of offense, you have to score, and keep scoring. Keep your foot on the gas. And so the only key to victory is to make sure that offense runs smoothly and effectively.
Very good point. And I think that if the Houston Texans do that, once again, it's going to be a long day for the New England Patriots, even though they are playing in those snazzy red throwbacks, which I know fans are going to love to see. They are at home. They are starting a rookie quarterback, and it is the beginning of a new era. It will be a bright era in New England, folks, but they're facing a tough team on Sunday, and it's going to be awfully tough to gain this victory. But I am here to tell you, Patriots fans, there is a way to do it. The way the Patriots need to earn the victory against the Texans is, first off, they need to protect their quarterback. The Patriots need Vidarian Lowe to have another strong game at left tackle. They need the Patriots interior of the defense of the interior of the offensive line to play solid, which means that Nick Leverett, who did not participate in practice on Wednesday, he needs to be a little bit better when it comes to standing up to pressure. He allowed 9 last week against the Miami Dolphins. That cannot happen if the Patriots want to have even a chance to remain competitive in this game. And again, Michael Wenu on that right side needs to be the stabilizing force, and he needs to be the guy that's going to help to dictate what type of game that line has. If that line can hold up, the Patriots have a puncher's chance in this one. That means Ramondre has to be strong running the football. That means Antonio Gibson needs to be a strong receiver out of the backfield and be a third down weapon, and the Patriots have to get the passing game involved. There will be times, Sarge, where you will see Drake May make eye-opening throws, and Patriots fans will be excited. The problem is he going to be able to make enough of them? And you mentioned the secondary of Houston, and as well as that pressure-packed defense led by Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. Going to be tough for the Patriots to do that. On defense, the Patriots have to try to control what is a very dangerous Houston offense. The way to do that is to ride the legs and the arms of Christian Gonzalez, who has been one of the better cornerbacks in the league this year. The size, the length, the ability to be able to lock down his opponent. He knows Stephon Diggs very well from their time going against each other from here in New England and again in Buffalo. This is going to be something where he's going to have to be very good against one of the best receivers, and a receiver that knows this area and knows this team very well. That's going to be a challenge. If Christian can keep Stephon in lockdown, or at least marginally disrupt what he likes to do, once again, Pats have a puncher's chance in this one. But finally, and this is going to be the big key, they have to hope Houston makes some mistakes and the Patriots have to capitalize on it. I think this is the biggest key to victory for New England. When you match up these two teams on paper, Houston should win this matchup 9 times out of 10. If the Patriots can capitalize on mistakes and can force them, that's where they're going to be able to feed off the home crowd, use that newfound energy from Drake May starting in this game, and then they have a chance to do it. Do I like their chances in this game? We'll see. But at the same time, I know Pats fans are going to be very excited to see Drake May under center, and they're going to be very excited to see what a lot of us believe to be a strong Super Bowl contender in the Houston Texans. I'm looking forward to it. Sarge is looking forward to it. We'll be in attendance, and we're going to be ready to break this game down for you. But first of all, Bud, I just want to thank you very much for joining me here today on this crossover episode, for joining the Locked On family. Honored to be your colleague. More honored to now be your friend, and I'm looking forward to covering this one. So any parting words for Patriots fans or Texans fans when it comes to this one heading into week 6, Bud?
Well, I just want to tell the Houston Texans, and I meant to throw this in there, hey, cut down on the penalties. It will make the fans very, very happy. Other than that, hey, I look forward to seeing what the Houston Texans are going to do. And like I said, any given Sunday, any team could be beat. I just don't think that it's going to be this Sunday.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I know we're, and I think you make a great point on penalties, Sarge. The Patriots had a dozen penalties that they were whistled for last week against the Dolphins, 6 of which by colleagues of mine that I hold in the highest regard were labeled as egregious or totally avoidable.
I know a lot of people are expecting a Houston win in this game, but if Drake May can pull off some first start rookie quarterback magic, maybe the Patriots have a chance in this one. For more on Big Sarge, check him out over at Locked On Texans. For more on Mike, check him out over at Locked On Patriots, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Next, we go to Lambeau. The Green Bay Packers looking to defeat the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona looking to get the better of Green Bay in an NFC bout. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Peter Bukowski, Locked On Packers, have what you need to know leading into the game, including some players to watch.
All right, we're back here, Locked On Packers, Locked On Cardinals. Alex, I mentioned that 5.5. When I say that, what do you react to with the line here? 5.5. Does that seem fair?
Yeah, fair and unfair. We don't know what Cardinals team is going to show up. You know, I mean, if you tell me the Cardinals win outright, I'd be like, okay. If you tell me the Cardinals lose by 20, I'd be like, okay. I mean, we don't know enough yet at this point, even though it's been through 5 weeks, which is frustrating and exciting at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, 5.5. Like, it's weird that 5 and 5.5 seems so different to me. Not to get like super into the betting part of this, but like 5, I go, okay, I feel comfortable with the Packers. 5.5, all of a sudden, I'm like, like, are we undervaluing the Cardinals here? Like, I do kind of feel that way because you mentioned, you know, like we just saw them. Like, did we forget what happened last week? Yeah. Like, the Cardinals beat a good. I know the 49ers are 2-3, but like, come on, we know what the talent is on that team. It does seem a little weird to me that we're just going to hand wave that, like, on the road. They went to Santa Clara and did that to the 49ers. Like, does that not count?
Yeah. And they were down 23-10 at halftime and brought it all the way back, turned them over 3 times. But yeah, you know, TBD, I would just stay away from this game. Like, personally, I'm too nervous.
From a gambling standpoint. Yeah.
I have no idea. There's no way of grasping what's going to happen, which is the weirdest thing going into week 6.
Yeah. I'm just looking. I have the second half play-by-play here from 49ers Cardinals here. And you know this, but for my audience, here are the second half drive chart for the San Francisco 49ers. Interception, downs, fumble, interception. That's it. That's the whole drive chart from the second half. That's bad. That's really bad offense. And you can tell me how much you thought that was good defense versus really bad offense, but
if the Packers don't turn the ball over, I think this is when it gets really tough. Like, I think to me, that is the key here. If the Packers don't turn the ball over, I think they win. And I know that seems overly reductive. The team that holds the ball usually wins, but that's where I am with this, because I don't think this defense is going to be able to get enough stops if the Packers don't turn the ball over.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that the Cardinals defense backloaded last week, 3 turnovers. It's more of the exception than the rule. I think that's something the Cardinals definitely need to focus on, because Jordan Love can throw 1 or 2 balls that can be intercepted irrespective of the talent in the secondary. The Cardinals need to be opportunistic in an effort to turn over this high-powered at times offense. So I 100% agree.
If you're gonna paint the roadmap here, is that the number one thing you're looking at, or what is the thing where you're like, okay, if they're gonna win, they need to do this?
Kyler Murray needs to be special every week. Like this, there's no days off anymore. And it could be special in very different ways. It could be special in checking out and throwing a back shoulder fade to Marvin Harrison Jr. with a favorable matchup on 3rd and medium. It could be checking into a run in a light box where the Cardinals have been throwing all over Green Bay for a quarter, and they're able to get James Conner for a chunk run when necessary. Like, obviously, these are all circumstantial and hypothetical, but Kyler Murray needs to have a floor that's higher than what it's been for a couple of the games so far this year. Remove the Rams game. That's the exception of the rule. Remove the Washington game. They cancel each other out. Now Kyler Murray needs to play at an elite level. It doesn't need to be numbers-wise. It needs to be pick your spots to take shots and be special. And that it starts and ends with that, because you can overcome defensive deficiencies if your quarterback is playing at an elite level, and running the ball is the other thing. Get Kyler Murray out in space again. You mentioned it. That's how, like, containing a running quarterback, containing a movable quarterback. Kyler Murray needs to circumvent that, and he's been able to do it, throughout his career. They need to make a focal point of picking their spots, calling design runs for him, whether it be RPO or just quarterback off tackle, which is kind of what we saw last week, in an effort to keep opposing defenses on their heels. Once a game, that's all you need. We saw it in the first drive last week, and the defense was on their heels the rest of the game. Doesn't need to be often, just needs to be choice spots once or twice throughout the game.
Yeah, and I think the way that modern defenses have evolved is we're seeing everybody live in this world where people are trying to play too high to keep a lid on everything, no big plays. And if you have a quarterback who can beat you with his legs, it is just such an advantage. Like, what is the list of quarterbacks who could score a 50-yard touchdown? It's like Jayden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. Am I missing someone? Like, I don't think Jalen Hurts is fast enough probably to do it.
Josh Allen's not fast enough. Like, no, I think it's – and especially in that space where you're faster than the safety, you're faster than the backer, and you're gone. Like we saw last week, he's so sneaky fast because people make fun of how he runs. He runs, like somebody in fast forward. It's like, it's like, I got little legs. Who cares?
He runs like my toddler when I'm like, hey, what toy did you just grab of your sister's? That's exactly how he runs.
Yeah. And you know what? You'll take it. You'll take it if he gets to his spots the way he does. And the one thing the Cardinals need to also do is shatter Xavier McKinney's interception streak. Like, I think that this is something that incredible offseason signing, by the way, just pulled him from the Giants. What are we doing here? East Rutherford. Like, what is going on? Or not East Rutherford, in New York. They need to not turn the ball over. Kyler Murray's been good. He hasn't been great. He's turned the ball over a couple times, but lob balls in the middle of the field with a crossing route is something that he's had a proclivity to do over his career. That is something that the Cardinals cannot do because they need to keep the defense in best positions possible.
This is if Kyler Murray plays a smart game, the Cardinals have a chance to win. Like, that is it. Like, if he can just keep them on schedule and not press. And I've been saying the same thing that you have about this Packers. It's actually been the Packers run defense where I'm like, the best Packers run defense since Aaron Rodgers, was patrolling the sidelines is the offense. Don't let teams stay on schedule. And so I think this is the same thing for this version of the Packers. The best way to beat this Cardinals team is going to be to get a league and make them one dimensional, because then it makes them so much easier to defend when you can't just like have everything in that playbook to your full disposal. Don't let James Conner get rolling, those kinds of things, because they'll just surgically move the ball down the field. Hey, Trey McBride here for 8. Hey, Marvin Harrison Jr. for 14, James Conner for 4. Oh, Kyler Murray, all of a sudden he got loose for 20 yards. Like, they're going to be able to do that. So you have to find a way to make them have to play left-handed. We'll see if they can do it.
Alex and Peter have all you need to know on the Cardinals and Packers. So be sure to check out Alex over at Locked On Cardinals and Peter over on Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Only 6 1 p.m. games, 7 if you include the Jaguars-Bears London affair. But lastly, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Looks like Anthony Richardson, at the time of this recording, is on track to play in this one against the Tennessee Titans, who are coming off of their bye week and hoping to build off of their momentum they got before they went on bye. So we have Zach Hicks of Locked On Colts, Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans, all the Colts and Titans insight you need coming up now.
It is time for us to tell the people exactly what we think will determine this game. We talked about the storylines on both sides, talked quarterbacks, talked defense. Now, looking at the keys to victory for the Colts. Obviously, the defense has struggled. There's injuries on the offensive side of the ball. What do you think the Colts need to do in this game to come out with a victory on the road?
I'll be honest with you, man. Just maybe get a stop on defense. Like, just give me like 1 or 2, maybe, and I'd be pretty happy. Give me a couple turnovers, maybe, But like, being all serious, like, it really comes down to what are we getting from the Colts defense? Because I feel confident enough in the offense. Now, again, Downs and Pittman and Taylor are all banged up, so we'll see if they don't go, then it might be a completely different story. But I feel confident enough in the Colts offense, regardless of who's playing at quarterback, whatever, just because Shane Steichen's that good and the coaching staff on that side of the ball is that good. I feel confident they can get, around 20 points or so, or get you enough points where you should have a chance at winning the football game.
Right.
I don't know if this defense can limit the other team enough to win the game. Like, we just saw Joe Flacco had the best game of his near 20-year NFL career. And what was the result? A loss. To an 0-4 team, to an 0-4 team, right? Like,
yeah.
And Tank Bigsby having whatever he wanted in the fourth quarter, Trevor Lawrence having anything he wanted. I mean, 2nd and 24, backed up, throw a 60-yard pass over the top of your defense. Like, I don't know if they could even stop the local college team near me. It's James Madison Dukes. Like, I don't know if they could stop James Madison Dukes from scoring. I saw JMU put up 70 earlier this year, so they might not be able to stop JMU. But like, it really comes down to what are we getting from this Colts defense? If we're like, I don't even care if we have some coverage busts, as long as the fundamentals are better and they're actually making their tackles and stopping things underneath from turning 2-yard gains into 10-yard gains, that's fine. Or the inverse, like if you can sit over the top and allow no explosives and just make Will Levis have to go 15 plays on you every single drive, sure. Eventually he's going to dive to the ground and throw a 360 shot into the end zone. Like,
for sure.
Like, that's fine. Like, but it can't be every single thing. So it can't be explosives, missing tackles, can't stop the run, and can't stop the pass. Like, you can't win football games that way. I know it's very self-explanatory. So really the biggest key is, can this defense do anything right in this game? Because that is really what we're coming off of in this Jacksonville game, where they did not do a single thing correct. Like, they had 2 turnovers, I guess. Woohoo. Like, great job on those 2. But outside of that, they did nothing right in this past game. So can they do anything right? And then on offense, can they overcome the injuries? Offensive line injuries, quarterback injury, running back injury, now wide receiver injuries popping up. That's really the biggest key, is like, if those guys miss, can they overcome that and get enough? But I feel more comfortable in that. I feel more confident in that. I feel more confident in Ashton Doolin doing something at wide receiver and Tanner Bortolini at center than I do on the $10 million guys they have on defense doing anything, Yeah. So it really comes down to this Colts defense. It doesn't matter which offense it is. Like, I don't care. All your comments will be like, no, Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, they've been struggling. It doesn't matter. Justin Fields threw over 300 against this defense. Caleb Williams over 300. Trevor Lawrence nearly 400 this past week. It doesn't matter who you are. They will give you your 300 yards if you can take advantage of it. So what kind of defense are we getting from the Colts this week? If they can at least be adequate, I think the Colts can get a win. That's really the biggest key to this game.
You know what? I think part of the problem is, and obviously you would know, but Gus Bradley's scheme is not super disguised. It's not super complex. He does what he does. He runs what he runs, and we're going to make it simple on guys. And when you have the personnel issues that they're having right now on defense, you can't play that way. You have to win with coaching, not win with talent when you have a lack of talent. So for me, it's like taking advantage of that. The Titans need to attack downfield. That's what Will Levis, all these quick timing, short passes that Brian Callahan wants to run and make the system. I hear you. I get it. But the Colts are banged up, and they're not going to have their full form pass rush and their best version of the defensive line. So the Titans offensive line should be able to be better. Attack down the field. Make this 5th string, 6th string, cornerbacks. You know, the safeties have actually been pretty solid for the Colts. It seems like Nick Cross has been good in the run, it seems like. But like the outside corners are an abomination. It's probably the worst group in the NFL right now. Attack them. Maybe you don't complete every pass, but maybe you get a DPI. Maybe Calvin Ridley makes a Houdini-like catch like he made against the Jets. Like, attack down the field on early downs. Attack. Let Levis throw it deep. That's where he's most comfortable, is just on corking deep passes. And you're right. The Titans can't go 15 plays, death by 1,000 paper cuts. They can't play that way. Levis is going to make mistakes, or they're just not going to have the down-to-down efficiency that you have to operate that way. You got to hit big explosive plays. I would attack down the field often and early. And on the defensive side of the ball, to me, it's not allowing explosive plays in the pass game. The Titans' middle of the field coverage with Kenneth Murray. Oh, my Lanta, Kenneth Murray. But no shock. He's been one of the worst coverage linebackers in the NFL his entire career. So, of course, he is now. Ernest Jones is a better linebacker, but he's still not great in coverage. He's a blitzing linebacker. That's what they both are, which means going downhill, not backwards, to play in coverage. So I worry about Josh Downs over the middle of the field. If I'm the Titans, I'm playing man coverage. I'm playing man. I'm playing cover one all day. I'm going to have Amani Hooker drop down over the middle of the field as the hook defender, as the intermediate zone. I'm going to have Quandre Diggs back deep, and I'm going to say we're not letting Josh Downs go against a linebacker. We're not letting Alec Pierce have a one-on-one down the sideline in cover 4. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to have a safety back deep, and I'm going to play Josh Downs with Roger McCreary in man. I'm not letting the Colts find these disadvantages and hit these big plays. Like, I'm playing man with safety help. Let L'Jarius Sneed take Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman isn't going to burn you deep. That's like not his game. So put Sneed on Pittman, or put JBJ, Titans rookie cornerback, Jarvis Brownlee Jr. from Louisville. Put him on Michael Pittman and let L'Jarius Sneed take Pierce to try to take away those deep shots, because Pierce has been so good this year. And then you put Roger McCreary, who's a really solid slot corner, one-on-one against Josh Downs. Let the safety help on the intermediate crossers with Josh Downs, and let the deep safety, Quandre Diggs, help with the Alex Pierce deep shots. And then we rock with that. I'm playing man coverage all day long and seeing what happens, regardless of who the quarterback is, because we could see, whether it be Flacco or Richardson, they're going to be able to throw deep. So take deep shots of your own. Limit the explosive plays with man coverage, with zone help on the 2 guys you got to help on. And ultimately, I'm going to keep making it my 3rd key to victory for the Titans until they can prove that they don't do it. Stop making the stupid mistake, Will. Just stop. All 4 games, a stupid mistake. If he keeps doing that, they're not going to win. This isn't the JV Dolphins.
Yeah. One thing I will say really quick before we get out of here is I love that you mentioned the linebacker play for the Titans there, especially in coverage. The one thing Shane Steichen is really good at is exploiting bad linebacker coverage. Like, the Colts' best passing games this year, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, they went after those 2 linebackers that were just not up to snuff in coverage. They went after Ventrell Miller a lot last week with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Back in week 1, though, against the Houston Texans, the offense wasn't very efficient. Azeez Al-Shaair, who, oh my gosh, he has been a stud this year. I know I might be hurting some of you guys, but I watched the film of that game and a couple other games from him. He might be the 2nd best linebacker in football behind Fred Warner, like, for my money. Like, he is so good. He is so good. So, like, when you have a guy who can play like that in the middle of the field against this Colts defense, it takes away a lot of their passing stuff, because they love to get downs on those linebackers. They love to exploit with high lows, with tight ends and downs, and, meshes and crosses and stuff like that. So it's going to test your linebackers a lot. So your plan, honestly, have a lot of man coverage. Now, again, it might leave guys on an island with a player like Pierce who can stack and run with the best of them, but it might be a better alternative than having Downs catch 10 passes for 80 yards and convert every single 3rd down for a 1st down.
I'll put the game on our corners. If our corners get beat all game and that's how we lose, then all right. But I'm not putting the fate of the game in the hands of our linebackers in pass coverage. I'm just not doing that.
For more on Zach, check him out over at Locked On Colts. For more on Tyler, check him out over at Locked On Titans, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That'll do it for the 1 p.m. slate of games coming up. We are going to be diving into 4 incredible 4 p.m. matchups. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Lots to get to still on the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show. First of the show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks has so many different things, and I love going on PrizePicks and looking at everything they have to offer. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going to go off, which players aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. So that Ravens and Commanders game getting a ton of hype right now. Maybe you want to pick more on Lamar Jackson passing yards, more on Jayden Daniels passing yards. Plenty of options over on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDON NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDON NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Week 6 has plenty of intriguing NFL action with multiple big matchups and plenty of storylines to dive into. I am Kevin Ostreicher. This is the Ultimate NFL Pregame Show, bringing you the biggest keys, big storylines, players to watch, keys to victory, and so much more leading up to game time with the help of our local experts here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The 4 p.m. slate of games has incredible matchups all the way around, starting off with a big NFC bout between the Dallas Cowboys and the Detroit Lions in Dallas. Dallas is coming off a big primetime win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, while the Lions are coming off of their bye week. Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys, Matt Derry of Locked On Lions, take you through the game and what you need to know.
It's a crossover Thursday edition with Matt Derry from Locked On Lions and Marcus Mosher, me from Locked On Cowboys. We are breaking down this Cowboys-Lions Week 6 matchup. Matt, what did the Lions need to do on Sunday to get a W?
Well, first of all, that they cannot turn the ball over. Like I said before, I think the Lions are the better team here. I think it's time to go down to Dallas and win. Cowboys are banged up on defense. Last thing you want to do is fumble the football and give Dallas a short field, a poor interception. When the Lions lost earlier this year against Tampa Bay, Jared Goff had a bad game and threw a couple of balls right to Tampa defenders. Take care of the football. I think that's going to be key for them. The other thing, too, is this pressure situation. Trey Wingo yesterday on Locked On Lions brought up a great point. Dak is better when he's pressured. Most quarterbacks aren't, but his numbers, when he's got somebody in his face, seems to be making these throws. So the Lions have got to figure out how that's going to work. Aiden Hutchinson all day, coming off that right defensive edge and wreaking havoc. You want that. You want Hutch to do his thing. But if he's getting there and getting close and Dak's completing throws, what kind of adjustments in game will Aaron Glenn make if Prescott has the hot hand? So that's something to watch as well.
Cowboys great Aaron Glenn, by the way.
That's correct. And I always like to refer to him as future head coach Aaron Glenn. But he's been good. And running the football. Sometimes in games like this, it's the big stage and it's the late window for Fox, and Burkhardt and Brady, like you said, could turn into a shootout. I hope Ben Johnson doesn't go that route and figures we still got to run the football. When the Lions are back to balance, Montgomery and Gibbs on the ground, then Goff through the air and utilizing what they have in their O-line, which is their strength, and not getting away from it and turning it into a 50 attempt type game for Goff, I think Detroit will be okay. How about for you guys?
Yeah, for the Cowboys, this is going to have to turn into a shootout. Like, they know they don't have the personnel on defense to hold Detroit under 20 points, right? So you have to be aggressive when you get into scoring positions. Last week, the Cowboys were horrendous in the red zone. Awful. Dak had 2 turnovers inside the 20-yard line. They had 4 turnovers altogether when you include a blocked kick. You can't do that this week and win the game. You're going to have to be darn near perfect in order to pull this off. So go into this game with the idea that you're probably going to need 30 or more points to win. Think of this game as touchdowns, not field goals. If they have that mindset and they can play well on the offensive side of the ball, I think they'll give themselves a chance. And then on defense, it's going to be a tough day at the office. Like, that Detroit's going to score. Don't make it harder on yourself. Don't have pre-snap penalties. Don't jump off sides. Don't give away free yardage. Last week, the Cowboys had 2 personal foul calls on defense. They had several other penalties. The Cowboys have been one of the more high penalized teams in the league. You can't make this any easier on Detroit's offense than it's always going to be. And then capitalize on your opportunities, right? There'll probably be, unless we have another one of those Jared Goff games where he's 18 of 18 or whatever he's going to be, there'll probably be 1 or 2 plays in this game where either the ball is on the ground or the ball is just a little bit thrown behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have to capitalize on those turnovers and on those takeaways. Otherwise, this could be a replay of what we saw in week 2 against the Saints when they could have scored 70 points if they wanted to on Dallas. They stopped basically in the second half.
Crazy.
Or the Lion or the Ravens game where they scored 28 points in the first 3 quarters. So when you get your opportunities, you're going to have to make them.
Brother, it's great to see you as always. I'm going to stick with my talk here. I think the Lions are going to win. A ton of respect for what Dallas has done. They're always good. They're always relevant. And I think that I just take Micah Parsons out of the mix. I just love that guy. That's such a big loss. And
I don't think this isn't a must-win game for Dallas, right? Because they won last week. They go 3-3 into the bye. They give themselves a chance. They're just hoping that this team starts to peak in January rather than peaking in October and November.
This one should be a really good game and is my personal favorite in the 4:00 window. So for more on Matt, more on Marcus, check them out over at Locked On Lions and Locked On Cowboys. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's take it to Las Vegas. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be traveling to the West Coast to take on a Las Vegas team that has had plenty of drama and storylines over the last few weeks, particularly surrounding Davante Adams, who is not expected to play in this game. The Steelers, heartbreaking loss, but there is some potential quarterback controversy with who is going to start in this game. Some people believe it should be Russell Wilson. Other people believe Justin Fields should continue to get the reins there. So Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, as well as your boy Q of Locked On Raiders, have everything you need to know about the biggest storylines and everything going on with both teams right now.
We got Locked On Steelers. We got Locked On Raiders. Q, let's talk about this. I said last week between the Steelers and the Cowboys, it was a CVS receipt of injuries. It's that case again in this one. I mean, it's just vast. I mean, just not even including the limited participant on both sides. For the Raiders, you got Davante Adams not participating with a hamstring, Max Crosby with an ankle, Michael Mayer, Jacoby Myers, Colton Miller, Jackson Powers Johnson, Zamir White, all on the Raiders side of things. On the Steelers, Najee Harris, TJ Watt, and Cam Hayward, they were resting. That always happens. But DeMonte Casey, Nick Herbig, Alex Highsmith, Isaac Seumalo, I guess he's also a rester as well. And DeMarvin Lee out, and Cordero Patterson. And even though Jaylen Warren was a limited participant, he's been considered doubtful for the week. Q, these two teams are hurt up right now. But I guess it's also, this is the pace of the NFL. This is just just the physicality of this game.
Yeah, no, the NFL is hurting right now. Literally, everyone's hurting. These injury reports are long and lengthy, and that's how the Raiders was last week. And yeah, it's lengthy again this week. Davante Adams, he's not going to play. I can tell you that. I mean, he's dealing with the hamstring injury, but he's also dealing with the trade request. So he's not going to play. Max Crosby, he's going to go. Right? Wednesday, he didn't participate. He doesn't need to participate at all throughout the course of the week to be able to go. He missed one game earlier this season. It was against the Cleveland Browns? Yeah, it was against Cleveland, and they found a way to win that game, which was actually pretty unbelievable, but they were able to get it done. He's not going to miss another game, so he'll be out there. Michael Mayer is dealing with a personal issue, so he's not going to be out there. Jacoby Myers, he's got an ankle injury, but listening to him in the locker room on Wednesday, he's going to be good to go. He should be good. It sounds like it's just a Wednesday. They just want to rest him, just precautionary to make sure that he should be good. We'll find out again later on Thursday afternoon about the injury report again Friday, and then of course inactive was about 90 minutes before kickoff. But Jacoby Myers, he should be a go. Colton Miller is one that I'm pretty pretty concerned about. He had offseason shoulder surgery. He's been trying to come back. That's their left tackle, and he's kind of been struggling anyway. So to see that he's dealing with a knee and a shoulder, both, and did not participate, that's concerning. I do think he'll go, but I'm still pretty concerned. And I didn't see Thayer Munford on the injury report this week, and so far. And he's a guy that can slide over to the left tackle spot. So if Colton Miller doesn't go, you can look for Thayer Munford, who was at one point a 7th-round pick out of Ohio State, being the left tackle, but he's more comfortable there than he is at the right tackle spot. So that's one to pay attention to. Jackson Powers Johnson, knee injury, and he didn't participate. That's one to be concerned about as well. He missed all the training camp, all the preseason. He was dealing with a concussion, but he was also dealing with other issues, and he's got a knee injury now. And I remember when he banged up his knee against Denver, and he just kind of tried to walk it off. So I'm assuming because he did finish the game that he's going to be okay. But that's just another injury for the young man, a rookie. So that's something to be concerned about. He's the starting left guard. Zamir White didn't play last week with the groin injury, didn't participate on Wednesday. My expectation is he probably won't play on Sunday. But, again, maybe the groin does heal up and he's good to go. But the Raiders' run game has been pretty non-existent anyway. So whether it's him or Alexander Madison, neither one of those guys have just shined in the running game. Madison's actually been better. Zamir White's still trying to learn the blocking scheme, and he just hasn't really adapted to it very well. So, the Raiders are definitely the walking wounded, and there's a few concerns on there to some major players.
I look at this, and I think that the Steelers have plenty of their concerns as well. Neither team can come into this game thinking, "Oh, you can just play the way that you want to play," because you're missing a lot of key components here. On the Steelers side of things, they're down. They have T.J. Watt, but the whole point of what they wanted to build in there around T.J. Watt was they kept Alex Highsmith. They paid him big money to be around. He's missed 3 straight games now. I think it's actually his 4th game that he's missed. Nick Herbig was a guy they drafted last year who played very well, and they were very excited to be the first guy off the bench. The 3 of them in the first 3 games together, they were phenomenal. They were getting after it. They were playing really well. Then Highsmith went down. Herbig had to become a starter against the Colts. That didn't look too good against them. He looked better. He looked good last week, and then he got hurt. And then after he got hurt, TJ Watt had to basically stay on the field the whole game. When the Cowboys were driving, he was gassed because he'd been out there for 70+ snaps. And now all of a sudden, both of those guys are not playing this game. And so now you have practice squad guys, defensive linemen, rotating out, playing edge. That's going to be a rough spot for the Steelers. And then you also have Cordero Patterson, the guy who's your number 3 running back, not available. Your number 2 running back, Jalen Warren, most likely not available. Though again, he looked all right in practice, but the Steelers have been very careful with him because he's had multiple injuries this year already. The offensive line again has been rotating. Though this might be the first time all season that they'll have the same starters in this game that they did the previous game, which hasn't happened because they've been so banged up. So I think this game is going to come down to who can make the most out of their game plan without the players that they won't have available right now. And the Raiders with Aiden O'Connell and what they want to do on offense, throwing down the middle part of the field, that's the thing that I think the Steelers have kind of messed up on here and there. Granted, I think they did better against the Cowboys. They gave up a couple plays down the sidelines and the outsides of the plays. But I think this is a game where the Steelers, they've wanted to be a team that controls the trenches this year on offense. They haven't. Their offensive line hasn't been able to coalesce. And so that's kind of forced them to win with different ways of Justin Fields making plays with his legs, hitting big plays here and there with his arm. And I do wonder, which defense do you think has the advantage in this matchup? Because, the Raiders defense, that was their calling card last year. Yeah. But with all the injuries that they've had and, other things they're worrying about, they haven't started off red hot this year.
No, they haven't. And they lost Christian Wilkins. He's on IR. He had the Jones-Frank surgery. So who knows how long he's going to miss. He's been a big factor, man. He was the big free agent guy that they got from the Miami Dolphins, $100 million contract that he gave him. And he got 5 games out of it. And so that stinks. That's a big blow. He's really helped out Max Crosby, who's just as advertised always. Max is always going to go 110%. He's going to give you everything he's got and then some. So, you still got to deal with Max. But the Raiders' defense is just riddled with injuries, man. Malcolm Kuntz never got into the regular season, tore his ACL. He was supposed to be a big factor. Christian Wilkins is now out. Marcus Epps on the back end is out with a torn ACL. He's done for the season. One of their starting linebackers, Divine Diablo, hasn't played the last couple of games. I mean, they are battered and bruised, man. They are a tough bunch right now. Haven't done a really good job of stopping the run, which I know that's probably music to Najee Harris's ears. Like, okay, here we go. And even Justin Fields, who can use his legs. So I think that the Steelers probably have the advantage when it comes to the defense, but the Raiders still have guys that can get to the quarterback. And if the offensive line is a little leaky or shaky for Pittsburgh, then that could be a factor. To win this game, the Raiders have to create a couple turnovers, in my opinion. They really do, right? And because they're averaging about 59, 60 plays per game max. They need to be up there around the 70, 75, plays to have an opportunity to win a game. Like, they need to sustain some drives. And I think that's another reason why Antonio Pierce made the decision to go with Aiden O'Connell, see if he can get a couple drives per game that are sustained and longer than what the Raiders are normally doing. They normally, their drives aren't very long, even on ones that they're scoring. They've had a couple longer ones, but not consistently. So they've got to find some kind of form of consistency offensively, and they haven't done it. So we'll see if Aiden O'Connell could do it on Sunday.
I think this is the same story for the Steelers. They're looking for something consistent that they can say they do well on offense. Right. They really haven't had that. Again, they've had sparks here and there, but I think they want to develop that identity that they haven't been able to show there. But I think it's the same thing defensively too. Like, the Steelers want to create turnovers. What's crazy is they won the turnover battle last week 3-1, technically 3-1, but it was really 3-0 because the last turnover was just the Steelers doing the pitch around game at the end of the game when they were just trying to create a miracle. But like, they won the turnover battle last week, and that's what they want to do. They're going to go for that again this week, and that's also kind of why the Steelers, I think, were so conservative. They're like, hey, if we can win the turnover battle, we'll win most of our football games this year. And I think against the Raiders, this might be another opportunity to say, hey, do this against this kind of a team, and we can keep this game in the script that we like to play that gets us wins, and you can get to 4-2 and then look at what you got the week after that. But to me, I think that you bring up a good point. The Raiders, you still got Max Crosby, he's going to play in this game. You still have the pass. The Steelers have to protect the football. They have to not lose on third downs the way they did this last game. And then on the flip side, they have to make it life hard on Aiden O'Connell. They cannot allow this run game to get going, and they need to, if Aiden O'Connell's a statue, they need to, they need to rip him out off that stone ledge there, because I think if you do that, you can disrupt everything the Raiders are doing and then control the pace of the game.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's going to be a lot of similarities. Both teams are going to want to do, a lot of the same things. Like, the Raiders are trying to find themselves offensively. They're trying to get their identity. They're trying to figure out what they do really well. And really, I couldn't tell you that there's something that I could put my finger on and say, this is what they do really well offensively. It's been so inconsistent. So that's going to be the biggest key. And that's what Aiden O'Connell's going to have to figure out pretty quickly. And not having Devontae Adams doesn't help. Right. Nobody's offense is better without Devontae Adams. So, that's going to be something that he's going to have to figure out. But Brock Bowers is as advertised, rookie tight end out of Georgia. He's fantastic. He's hard for a linebacker to cover, and he's hard for a corner to cover. Right. If you have a linebacker lined up against him, he's too fast for him. You put a corner on him, he's too strong for him. So you pick your poison. That's a good mismatch or matchup nightmare, I should say, that the Raiders are going to look to exploit. They'll figure out who they're going to have on them. Like the Broncos for a lot of the game last week put Pat Surtain on them, and Pat Surtain is fantastic. So you can already imagine how good Brock Bowers is if the Broncos decided, you know what, Pat, you go ahead and take that dude out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting because the Steelers, they like Joey Porter Jr. They've had different guys assigned to tight ends to limit them in games. But hey, this is going to be an interesting matchup either way. It's a classic matchup that dates back to the golden age of football in the 70s.
Chris and Q, amazing duo right there. For more on Chris, check him out over at Locked On Steelers. For more on Q, check him out over at Locked On Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. AFC West showdown, Los Angeles Chargers, Denver Broncos. Bo Nix and the Broncos looking to keep it rolling. The Chargers coming off of their bye week, looking to establish momentum. David Drogemeyer of Locked On Chargers and Sarah Bedinger of Locked On Broncos take you through the matchup.
Well, we know that one of these teams is going to come away with a win in week 6, the Broncos or the Chargers, but how is it going to get done? We're going to be breaking down keys to victory on this crossover Thursday edition, Locked On Broncos and Locked On Chargers. And want to say thank you one more time to all of you that make Locked On Broncos or Locked On Chargers your first listen of the day every single day. We appreciate you everydayers out there. And if you're just stumbling upon the show for the first time, hey, why don't you make us an everyday listen? Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts as well as on YouTube. David, I'm going to throw it to you. 3 keys to victory for the LA Chargers in this game as they look to improve to 3-2 coming out of the bye week.
Yeah, first and foremost, it's protect Justin Herbert. And some good news for the Chargers. Their all-pro left tackle, Rashawn Slater, did make his way back to practice today. as we are recording this on a Wednesday. So that is fantastic news. The Chargers with Rashawn Slater at full strength, 2-0. Without Rashawn Slater, 0-2. So having Rashawn Slater back at practice and Joe Alt also back at practice, both those guys were unfortunately out for the last game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And, the Chargers did well to keep that game close, but having those guys in there to protect Justin Herbert, who's still, I'm sure, recovering from that ankle injury, is of paramount importance. And the pass block win rate for the Chargers has been atrocious. They've been 31st in the league. And as you mentioned before, the Broncos blitz more than anyone in the league besides the Vikings at 40.1% of the time. They're also fourth in the league in pressure percentage. If the Chargers can do a better job in pass protection, picking up the stunts and the blitzes, they will have a much better chance of winning in this football game. Second thing is keeping the Broncos under 100 yards rushing. This is a hard line. It's very important. The Broncos have had over 100 yards rushing in all three of their wins and have not eclipsed 100 yards in either of their losses. So controlling the running game and forcing Bo Nix to go out there and throw more than the Broncos want them to throw is definitely going to be the recipe for them. And then the last thing is avoiding the penalties. The Chargers have shot themselves in the foot, especially against the Kansas City Chiefs. They had 9 penalties against the Chiefs, and they are so killer. This is not an offense that can overcome 3rd and 10 plus. They're just not. They're not built that way. 3 third downs of 3rd and 14 plus against the Kansas City Chiefs. That is a recipe for disaster when you have an injured quarterback that's out there fighting for his life and trying to stay in the game and play for you. Denver defense will eat them alive if they do that this week. So they absolutely have to stay in those more manageable down and distance situations. That means cleaning up the pre-snap penalties, and hopefully they got those communication issues fixed during the bye week. That right there, to me, are the biggest keys to victory for the Chargers in this one.
And the Denver Broncos just want to do the opposite of all those things. No, we got 3 keys for the Denver Broncos here against the LA Chargers in week 6. Number 1, feed Javonte Williams. Number 2, limit the big plays defensively. And number 3, hit some shot plays offensively. So we talked about feeding Javonte Williams in segment 2, and we're talking about big storylines. Can the Broncos keep that running game going? As David mentioned, the Broncos have gone over 100 yards rushing in each of their last 3 games, all 3 of those games being victories. And we know when teams are running the ball well, they're probably running more plays. And if they're running more plays, they're probably controlling time of possession most of the time. So you want to be able to run the ball very well against a Chargers team that has been pretty stingy defensively. So if you can pick up yardage on the ground, gain yardage after contact, make this a physical game. That's what the Broncos want to do in this one. And then obviously defensively here, limit those big plays, because that's one area where the Broncos have struggled a little bit this season. We saw it with the big touchdown to Brock Bowers against the Raiders. We saw it with I think it was Amir Abdullah or one of the running backs there for the Raiders had a big run, a big chunk run that set them up in scoring range as well. And not only that, David, but the Broncos' top 3 corners, I mean, they're very good. Pat Surtain, Riley Moss, Jaquan McMillan, they're very, very good players. They have a combined 8 pass interference penalties called against them this season so far. So that could be dependent a little bit on the officiating crew at times, but also, teams have found out like these guys, they're grabby out there. They're physical. They want to make plays on the ball. So, hey, if you throw the ball deep and these guys make one wrong move, one false move, you might get yourself a flag that sets you up with a big play. So the Broncos need to limit those big plays defensively, but they also need to hit some shot plays on the offensive side. I said it before, but they've missed on a couple of them, especially against the Raiders with Troy Franklin. Should have had a long touchdown catch, just went right through his hands. And then there's been other times where, Bo Nix has thrown it just a little bit too far, missed his guy, or, things like that. Again, they've hit on some 20-plus yard plays, but man, if they can start connecting on some of these shot plays that are opening up, that the run game is helping open up for them, that is going to be a complete game changer for Bo Nix and this offense. So not just against the Chargers, but I think going forward, those are the big keys to victory for the Denver Broncos in this game.
Yeah, this one's going to be a physical one. We know the Chargers have not found a lot of success, and unfortunately, Justin Herbert has never won at Mile High. It's going to be a crazy environment. It's going to be raucous. It's going to be loud. It's going to be really tough on your body because you're going up in the elevation. So the conditioning is going to definitely take a part or play a part in this game. You got to have your best when your best is required. And that means in the fourth quarter, when a lot of these games in the NFL are decided, you got to have your best in those moments to be able to close out the game. So we will see who is going to be in their best form in the fourth quarter, because I feel very strongly that this game could go down to the wire.
Couple of former Oregon Ducks quarterbacks, as you and I were talking about off the camera a little earlier, as well as, look, hey, Sean Payton, formerly rumored to be a head coach candidate for the Chargers, and Jim Harbaugh, I believe Broncos ownership went to his house in Ann Arbor, Michigan to interview him. So a lot of different dynamics at play in this game. I'm sure the TV crew, whoever's calling this game, is going to have a lot of fun nuggets for all of us watching the game at home.
For more on David, check him out over at Locked On Chargers. More on Sarah, check him out over at Locked On Broncos, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Rounding out the 4 p.m. games, it's NFC South between the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. Atlanta's been a team, Kirk Cousins, that magic on Thursday Night Football last week. So they're going to be looking to continue what they have, and the Panthers looking for a win. So Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons, Julian Council of Locked On Panthers, take it through which NFC South team come out on top.
Back here on this Locked On NFL crossover Thursday, presented by our friends over at PrizePicks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Carolina Panthers are 6.5-point underdogs. The Atlanta Falcons are 6.5-point favorites. So just so no one can say, all right, you only gave the Panther side of it. I gave both. Panthers are underdogs, 6.5 points. Falcons are favorites, 6.5 points. And we're going to talk about the 3 things each team must do in order to win this game. And there's probably more than 3 things they each must do to win the game. But Aaron, please tell me, what are the 3 most important things the Falcons must do to come and beat these Panthers?
Well, I think the first thing is you got to stop the run. That, to me, is the Panthers' biggest weapon. And if you can do that, then I think hopefully you won't have too many problems with the rest of the Panthers' offense. We'll see. I think the other thing that benefits the Falcons, because they struggle to stop the run, is the number 2 thing, which is get off to a fast start offensively. If you can do what the Bears did and get an early lead, you can force Carolina to kind of abandon the run on their own as they try to work back from that sort of thing. And that will be a big benefit to your defense being able to stop the run, because they don't have to worry about it. And then the third thing is just play a clean football game. Going back to the point I made earlier about a chaotic Kirk Cousins, just don't turn the ball over. Don't give Carolina too many opportunities to get back into this game. And I think if you do those 3 things, you should be able to walk away with a win in Carolina, in Charlotte, even if it's going to be a typical, sweat-inducing, nail-biting Falcons late game surge or whatever the case may be. But if you check those 3 boxes, I think you should be okay against a struggling Panthers team.
Well, 3 of the boxes the Panthers need to check among the probably 29 or so boxes they need to check to win this game on Sunday. Number 1, convert on 3rd down. Dave Canales goes over some of the factors that lead to every win or loss, and he talked about how the Panthers were 0-7 on 3rd and manageable in that game against the Bears on Sunday. And that's not ideal, obviously. The Panthers currently are one of the worst 3rd down offenses in the league. But if you want to take away the first 2 weeks where Bryce Young was a quarterback, we'll look at the last 3 weeks. Panthers are still only converting 39.47% of their 3rd down since Andy Dalton took over, which would actually be smack dab in the middle of the NFL at 16th, which, okay, that's much better than only converting like 28% like they were with Bryce Young, but still, they got to be able to stay on the field. And in order to run the football and take advantage of a matchup, I think they can against this Falcons defense that has really struggled to stop the run, is by being able to convert on 3rd down and be able to keep Chuba Hubbard on the field. And also, I don't know, maybe hand the ball to Chuba Hubbard more often than they have. Number 2, you gotta get up the field on defense. They have just been awful at doing that. Speaking of 3rd down conversion percentage, they're allowing their opponents to convert 46% of the times. That's 29th in the NFL. They're last in red zone defense. Aaron, 87.5% of the time the team gets into the red zone, they score. So if you get to the red zone, touchdown Falcons. That's what it's going to be. And they're allowing 50.9% of their opponents' drives and in scoring drives. The only team that's worse the Atlanta Falcons, allowing 52.1%. So there's probably going to be a score on every drive based off of how things have gone for both these defenses. And number 3, got to limit turnovers. This is a problem for this team last year as well, where they just got killed when it came to points off turnovers. Their turnover margin's not that bad. It's -3. It's not good, obviously. Falcons are at -1 through the first 5 weeks of the season. The Panthers have had turnovers on offense in their drives 13.6% of the times. That's 6th most in the NFL. Their opponents have 44 points off those turnovers, including 17 last week in Chicago. And Dave Canales counts turnover on downs as well. So I'm probably like subtracting 14 points that also would go towards that. The Panthers have 6 points off opponent turnovers. So 44-6, you can see that's a big scale that's being weighed. That's why they're not winning some of these games when they turn the football over, because when they turn it over, their opponents cash in. When the opponents turn it over, which has been rare, the Panthers don't really do anything. So those are the 3 things that they must do in order to get this win on Sunday. We'll see whether that will be the case. Any final thoughts heading into this matchup on Sunday, and anything else you're looking at, Aaron?
No, I expect the Falcons to come back down a little bit to earth after their big Thursday night win. I'm hoping I'm wrong on that projection, but as long as they walk away with a win, starting off the season 3-0 in division, sort of increasing that lead, that'll be great. So even if it is a underwhelming win, I'll take what I can get at this point with the Atlanta Falcons.
I'm expecting this to actually be a pretty high-scoring game. Like, I was surprised to see that over/under go down. I mean, if people want to take the over on FanDuel, go ahead. I probably won't be doing it, but I'm expecting points, especially looking at the last 2 games Atlanta's played. And I get Carolina didn't play well against the Bears, but the Bears are the first good defense that they've faced with Andy Dalton. The Raiders don't have a good defense. The Bengals, their defense is not good either. We just saw Joe Burrow did everything he could to try and win that game on Sunday. They could not stop the Ravens, and Lamar is excellent. Totally understand that. This is not a good defense they're facing, and I think they're going to have an opportunity to be able to run the ball and see if those receivers can get open. I know Deontay Johnson, he's struggling with an ankle injury, was limited to practice on Wednesday. Xavier Legette had a shoulder injury, but he was actually out there, I believe, as a full participant on Wednesday. So that's positive. Adam Thielen's still on IR, going to miss at least the next 2 games. So I'm expecting points. 425, a lot of eyes going to be on this game. Can't let it be a boring game. I don't think it's going to be a boring game at all. It should be interesting as the Falcons and the Panthers get it going here.
We'll see if the battle between Kirk Cousins and Andy Dalton makes for some good late window TV, but both teams would really benefit from a win here. For more on Aaron, more on Julian, check them out over at Locked On Falcons and at Locked On Panthers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's all we have for the 4 p.m. slate, but we still have more for you here on the Ultimate NFL pregame show coming up. Prime time games, 2 big ones. Stay tuned. A lot to get to here on the Ultimate NFL pregame show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So to get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You're started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So again, that Ravens and Commanders game getting a ton of hype right now. Ravens open up as 6.5-point favorites on FanDuel. So if you like it from the Ravens side as the favorites or the Commanders side as the underdog, be sure to pick your side over on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. Week 6 of the Ultimate NFL pregame show is back. Kevin Ostreicher still taking you through everything you need to know for all of Week 6 action. 1 p.m. slate, check. 4 p.m. slate, check. Primetime games. Let's dive into it now. Sunday Night Football, the Cincinnati Bengals coming off of an absolute heartbreaker to the Baltimore Ravens, losing in overtime 41-38. And the New York Giants looking to establish some level of momentum. Those two will face off in the Meadowlands. So, Patricia Traina, Locked On Giants, Jake Lisco, James Rapien of Locked On Bengals have everything you need to know leading up to game time.
Time to dive into the 3 keys to victory for each team in this crossover Thursday presented by PrizePicks, where you can download the app and use code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Jake Lisco and James Rapien from Locked On Bengals, along with Patricia Traina from Locked On Giants, here to break down 3 keys to victory. And Patricia, let's start with those Giants. I'm looking at Dexter Lawrence. I'm looking at Brian Burns. I'm looking at Malik Neighbors. Who are you looking at when you're thinking about keys to victory for the New York Giants?
I'm looking at Daniel Jones.
Can he keep going? I mean, the last since week 2, he's had 3 multiple touchdown games, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions in all 3 of those games. Can he keep that going? We talked about earlier how the Bengals defense is kind of, I don't want to say messed up, but it's lacking, to be nice. So can Daniel Jones take advantage now that Dax Hill isn't out there? How can the offensive line of the Giants, I think, has done a really, really good job with its pass protection. Daniel Jones is not getting knocked around like a pinball as much as he was. So I think that's going to be important. So that would certainly be one of the keys. Can Daniel Jones and that receiving group take advantage of that banged up Bengals defensive secondary? I think another one, obviously, winning in the trenches. I mean, it sounds elementary, but Dexter Lawrence provides a push. He's drawing double and triple teams. Reminds me almost of how Michael Strahan back in the day used to draw 2 or 3 guys on him to slow him down. And even that didn't work. And can the Giants take advantage of them? There have been some games where, they double or triple Dexter Lawrence and guys aren't getting off single blocks, taking advantage. So they need to make Joe Burrow uncomfortable. And, because no quarterback likes to be made uncomfortable. No quarterback likes to get hit. And then finally, I would say find a way to slow down Jamar Chase and those receivers, because the Bengals have good receivers. And who do you really devote your resources to? Do you double up Chase? Do you double up somebody else? What do you do against that Giants defensive secondary? They played better last week, like I said, against the Seahawks triple threat. But can they keep it going? And if so, how are they going to allocate the resources to stop those guys?
Yeah, I always think it's interesting how teams play the Bengals wide receivers, because it is unique where you might not play a lot of 2 high safeties, and then that's exactly what you do against the Bengals. And in facing the Seattle Seahawks, and especially how DK Metcalf was playing going into that game, it certainly gives the Giants a way to test the waters. But I totally agree with you about the trenches. And to me, that's the one path. If the Giants are going to throw a wrench in this Bengals offense, it's that, right, Jake? I mean, what else would you say? I would expect Joe to make the right reads. And if he has to use his tight ends, we've seen him do that. We've seen him run the offense through the running backs when needed. And certainly we know about the receivers. So getting pressure on him can limit that. Other than that, if you take away Jamar and T, well, he's going to have other options that he can beat you with.
The other thing that stands out to me about the New York defense is they have athletes all over the field, athletes at every position, from the front 4 to the secondary to the linebackers, where they, of course, add Isaiah Simmons to that linebacking group. And maybe he's not the best linebacker in the world, but he's certainly a great athlete, and we know that. And so there's more athleticism in this unit than most of the defenses, if not all of the defenses the Bengals have faced this year, which includes the Washington Commanders and Carolina Panthers, 2 of the worst defenses in the NFL. But it comes down to how they handle Dexter Lawrence. And that Brian Burns and Marius Mims matchup, to me, very interesting. More of a speed rusher, the agile type rusher in Brian Burns. And there's a clear weakness on tape for Marius Mims so far, where occasionally he will still overset. Occasionally he will still get beat with those quick moves back inside. Mims dealing with a very sore ankle after he got kicked in that surgically repaired ankle last week, and dealt with what he described as potentially a reaction with the nervous system, where he got kicked perhaps with some exposure there. So Zach Taylor describing him as very sore, hopeful for him to go this week. But if he can't, or if he's limited in some capacity, that matchup is a bit concerning, where Joe Burrow and this offensive line have been able to manage pressure really well. I think that for the first time since that Chiefs game, where you have to deal with Chris Jones and that Steve Spagnuolo defense, there is a bigger challenge in terms of a pressure package coming from this New York Giants defense this week. But James, from a Bengals perspective, what do you see as the 3 keys for the Bengals to win this game?
You're going to see it align a little bit with Patricia's, just on the opposite side of the spectrum. You got to make Daniel Jones uncomfortable. You got to get after him, hit him, find a way to pressure him. And along those lines, the run game, which I'll get into in just a second, you got to keep rolling on offense. Key number 2, 3 straight games of 30-plus points. That has to continue. And then finish. They haven't finished games. 4 losses by a total of 15 points, games on the line every single time, and they have not finished. Even in their lone win, they could have put the Panthers away much, much sooner. They didn't let Carolina hang around. And so the path for this defense, the way to neutralize things a little bit, because you're not going to be able to guard Malik Neighbors all day. And I'm not sure if you are able to do that with a bunch of resources. Well, then there's going to be other guys that are in one-on-one situations. Make Daniel Jones uncomfortable, because that'll lead to some turnovers. If you take away the run and you're not giving up 5+ yards per carry, that will go a long way as well. He's agile, and so he's certainly not Lamar Jackson, but he's not Jacoby Brissett either. And so you got to find a way to make sure that he doesn't beat you with his legs. And then, like I said about the offense, this offense is playing as well as we've seen them play, and they're as multiple as they've ever been in the Joe Burrow era, because they can win with a bunch of different ways. And I do think it's going to be interesting to see how Amarius Mims does this week, especially if that ankle is a bit sore. But you need this offensive line to keep Joe upright, even though it's much easier said than done. Zach Moss, huge in pass protection. We'll see how he does this week after tweaking his ankle against the Ravens. Huge from a pass protection standpoint to have him out there. And then the finishing games part of it, there's going to be a moment. I don't think the Bengals are just going to go there and get blown out. I think they're going to be inspired. I think that they're going to play very motivated. But I also expect this game to be close, because it feels like every Bengals game is going to be within 10 points. And so let's say it's a 3-point game or a 7-point game in the fourth quarter and Joe Burrow has the ball. Can he go finish it? Or are they going to let the Giants hang around? I think that that's huge in what is very much a must-win game for the Bengals.
And to your point, James, the Giants don't have a very good record on Sunday Night Football, especially at home. So if there was ever a week for the Bengals to snap out of it, this might be a good one if they can, batten down the hatches, so to speak.
Patricia, when you looked at the schedule for the Giants before the year started, when you looked at this game, what were your thoughts about playing the Bengals in Week 6 on Sunday Night Football at home coming into the season, before the season started?
Oh, I automatically had it down as a loss.
Meanwhile, we're looking at this game from the Bengals side thinking, oh, they have a soft schedule to open. Yeah, they have Kansas City. Yeah, they have Baltimore, but they have Washington. They have New York. They have New England. They have Carolina. And now we're looking at this game and I'm thinking, all right, Malik Neighbors, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns.
Yeah.
Can those guys wreck a game?
Yeah.
Can they drive the Bengals into a deeper and darker place than they already are? And those are the questions that we will get answers to.
Jake and James can be found over on Locked On Bengals, and Patricia can be found over on Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now we bring you to the Monday night action. The New York Jets, storylines galore. Robert Saleh out. Devontae Adams possibly in. Who knows? Was it Aaron Rodgers? Was it Woody Johnson? All that being said, the Jets have a chance to, with a win, be in first place in the AFC East. They'll be facing off against the Buffalo Bills, who, if they win, they will be in first place in the AFC East. So plenty on the line in this game. Joe Marino of Locked On Bills, John Butchko of Locked On Jets, take you through what could be a very drama-filled game.
It's Crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm John Butchko, the host of Locked On Jets, alongside my colleague Joe Marino, the host of Locked On Bills. Get ready for Week 6 action. Buffalo Bills visiting MetLife Stadium to take on the New York Jets Monday Night Football. Of course, these two teams played at MetLife Stadium Monday night a year ago. A game I think like both fan bases would love to forget, because the Jets lost Aaron Rodgers for the season and the Bills lost the game on an overtime punt return by Xavier Gibson. Joe, hopefully this game goes better for both teams this time. It will be Jeff Ulbricht's debut as Jets head coach. What are your keys to victory for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, it's interesting kind of going back to the scene of the crime, like you mentioned, for both teams. I think there's three things that are really important for the Bills on Monday Night Football. Number one is efficiency in the passing game. You know, Robert Saleh has said it in the past, and I know he's not the head coach, but I think the principle remains. The Jets are a team that are willing to dare Josh Allen to be patient with the football. And boy, was he ever patient the first 3 weeks of the season. He's so patient. He just did all the smart, right things with the ball. It was so beautiful. And the last couple of weeks, he's gotten away from that. And he hasn't thrown an interception this year, which I know is a big storyline with Josh Allen, and that's great. But this wouldn't be the week to suddenly start being more risk willing with the football. DJ Reed's obviously playing out of his mind this year, and Sauce Gardner's a really good corner as well. And so I think the Bills need to be willing to revert to being efficient with the passing game, getting the backs involved, getting the tight ends involved. Khalil Shakir, if he's available to play, this isn't the week to go big play hunting and throwing the ball down the field. It's time to get back to efficiency in the passing game. So for me, that's number one. Number two is you got to play with an awareness of the game script. There's some strange dynamics in this game. You have a Jets team that just fired their head coach in week 5. They're coming after playing in London. They chose not to have their bye week this week. They were willing to play a game. And so those are weird dynamics of certainly some injuries on the Jets side of things that we need to monitor. But also you have a Bills team that's looking to get out of a rut. They've lost 2 in a row, not normal for the Bills. In fact, since 2020, the Bills until last week were 14-4 coming after a loss. They don't typically lose 2 in a row. And now they're staring at a possibility of losing 3 in a row. And, to me, it changes the dynamics of the season for the Jets. Like we talked about in the opening segment, this was probably thought of as a move to galvanize the troops here with the Jets, as they are not wanting to let the season kind of get away and make the path difficult for them. It's still open, right? For whatever you want to think about it, the Bills certainly haven't played at a level that makes you say this is their division and they're going to run away with it, right? I know that the Patriots and the Dolphins don't look great, but Tua will come back at some point, and this Jets team obviously is trying to rally here. And so I think this is a turning point. And so I think you have to play with an awareness of game script. Like I mentioned, only no interceptions for Josh Allen this year, 2 offensive turnovers at total for the Bills. Like this isn't the game to feel like everything has to wake up. There's a good chance this is a defensive struggle on Monday Night Football, where the Jets, we've talked about their own offensive issues. The Bills' offense has not been good the last 2 weeks. So if a drive ends in a kick, that's probably okay. I think you have to be willing to embrace the style of game that probably is going to happen on Monday night. And the number 3 is don't lose the game on special teams. I think the Jets, if there's been something good about them that's been consistently good, it's that they're good on special teams. Punting game, they cover kicks and punts. Their return game usually pretty good. They've blocked a punt already this year. And the Bills have been up and down on special teams. They've had an extra point block this year. They've had some field goal miscues. They've given up a kick return for a touchdown. They lost to the Jets on Monday Night Football in overtime because of that. And so you start to look in where the margins are and where, the Jets can find an advantage. I'm sure they're thinking about special teams. And I think the Bills have to be very careful to not let that be a determining factor on Monday night.
Great analysis, Joe. I think for the Jets, the first key is just have a good week of preparation. And I know you can say that every week, but there's so many interesting dynamics, as you mentioned, about this week for the Jets. Jeff Ulbrich taking over. And as we talked about earlier in the show, this was a shock to the system for a lot of guys on that Jets team. I think for all of Robert Saleh's faults, he had not lost that locker room. This was not a case like Josh McDaniels in Las Vegas a year ago, where the players are going to be refreshed to have a new voice. I think there was some surprise. So for Jeff Ulbrich, it's going to be getting the players in the right headspace for this game. The Jets also need to figure out who's running the offense this week. Joe, I don't know who's in charge of the Jets offense, because as we talked about, Saleh was about to demote Hackett, and Ulbrich said, we're going to take a look at everything. So I couldn't tell you who's going to be calling the plays for the Jets Monday night. So a lot of it's just going to be about just having a good week of preparation. And while that's true every week, I think with so much in transition for the Jets, that's going to have to be a big focus. The second thing for the Jets is I think they need to be disciplined in their pass rush lanes. There are a couple times this year where they've been hurt by quarterback scrambles, especially week 2 against Tennessee against Will Levis. Jets almost lost that game. One of the biggest reasons was they were having trouble with Levis breaking plays, taking the ball down the field. Josh Allen, obviously a very mobile quarterback, very adept. If you give him room to run and nobody's open, he can make big plays. The third thing for the Jets for me is they need to figure out how to unlock this downfield passing game. It's a little tricky because the Jets don't really have a great speed guy in their receiving group. They have, Garrett Wilson, who's quick separator, good after the catch guy, a good route runner. But, despite the 4.3 40 he was timed out of the combine, not really a great deep threat. Mike Williams is a good back shoulder guy. He can win a contested ball down the air. He's a guy I think they need to get involved more. He's been kind of an afterthought, as I mentioned, in this offense. Had a big catch on a back shoulder throw in the fourth quarter, week 2 against Tennessee. One of the pivotal plays in that win on a 2nd and 16. Rodgers found him. Little involved 2 weeks ago against Denver, but he hasn't really found his role in the offense. And I think, he might be a guy who can help them in that area. Alan Lazard, 3 balls hit his hand last week. All of them would have been big plays that fell to the ground, didn't complete, did have a touchdown, but they just need to figure out a way to push the ball down the field. And with Rodgers right now, maybe a little uncomfortable with his pass protection. And with Rodgers banged up, it's amazing because Aaron Rodgers left that game against the Vikings with a sprained ankle. There's been so much crazy going on around the Jets this week. We haven't really talked much about the fact Rodgers might be playing at less than 100%, which would normally be storyline number 1. He's not really that comfortable with his offensive line right now. So if the Jets need to max protect, they need to leave a few guys in. They need to figure out a way to produce big plays in this passing game because they just have not been doing that yet at this point of the season.
Yeah, it sounds like one team's trying to produce big plays in the passing game, and it's not really working. And then, of course, you mentioned the Jets and kind of their own issues there. So it's almost like if either team starts hitting explosives in the passing game, especially against these defenses that are historically very good at not allowing explosive plays in the passing game, that would be interesting if the vertical passing game wakes up for either team this week.
I'm looking forward to those juicy storylines leading up to game time. And honestly, during the game, I expect it to be a very good one. For more on Joe, more on John, check them out over at Locked On Bills and Locked On Jets, respectively, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's all I have for you here today on the Ultimate NFL pregame show. Plenty of incredible Week 6 action coming your way. Again, we here on the Ultimate NFL pregame show get you ready for game time with the help of our local experts diving into everything that is needed before game time. We'll be right back here for Week 7's action. A lot of great matchups on the horizon in that game. So enjoy your weekend, enjoy your Sunday, and enjoy football. We'll see you right back here soon on the Ultimate NFL pregame show.